Well, what's up, guys? This is Jay from COI. So, yesterday I talked about the George Floyd tape that we all saw, and I discussed the impact that was going to happen if the police department and the city and the state did not come out and prosecute Derek Chauvin, the police officer who was kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck. Well, Derek Chauvin is still not arrested, and yesterday evening the protests started, and they were peaceful, pretty calm. That was until it began to be around 8 or 9 o'clock, and the police started tear gassing and using rubber bullets on the crowd. That immediately turned into looting and rioting. And make no mistake, it was completely peaceful until the cops started using tear gas. I want to make one note on this, and that is, do you remember a couple weeks ago when a bunch of heavily armed people stormed a Capitol building in Michigan? No tear gas, no rubber bullets. And I believe there has to be a part of your brain when you're peacefully protesting with no weapons and the cops start shooting rubber bullets at you and tear gassing you that says, fuck this, I don't care. The crowd went across the street from the police station to the Target and started to loot, riot. Places like AutoZone and bigger corporations, as well as some small companies, were set on fire, were destroyed, broken windows, property damage, all sorts of stuff like that. It's a very scary situation. There was a few people who were kind of notable in this. And I think two guys that really had the right frame of mind for this whole thing. And they didn't look like it. They were two guys who, I'll be honest, they kind of look like friends of mine. They were kitted up. They had vests on. They had assault rifles. And when I saw the interview, at first I was like, oh no, these guys are going to be a problem. But they didn't. They had one of the best kind of mindsets from where they should be. You could tell they're very principled guys. I'm not using names because they didn't give them. And I think that's also great. They just said that they were free Americans. They said that they wish the rioting would stop, and they're there to protect local businesses, but more so, they not only had the sentiment of justice for Floyd, but said, look, we've seen police records, we know what they do, and we're here to protect the protesters from the police. That's amazing. I mean, that is true courage. That is just fantastic. In fact, I'm going to play that interview in its full context here. I just kind of wanted to break that down just in case the volume wasn't where it should be.
So, tell me who you are.
Well, I mean, free Americans, yeah.
And what are you doing today?
We were out here yesterday too, down on the original protest site. So basically, you've seen the records that cops keep, and cops are a lot less likely to try and tread on people's rights when there's other armed Americans with them. So we figured it's about damn time that or at least I figured that it's about damn time some heavily armed rednecks stood with fellow citizens.
And why are you protecting this store?
Well, I mean, this wasn't exactly a specified action.
We've been kind of, so we just kind of ended up here.
We've been moving around and just trying to see what's what without getting necessarily completely slapped by massive groups of people. And while we were walking, somebody mentioned that there were some guys at the back of us actually wanted to know if they were over here to go buy something, and they said that they're closed and they're defending their businesses. Oh yeah, Target's on fire. Yeah. By the way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we heard that, we're like, well, we better kit up and go see if these guys need help. And turns out these guys are out here with machetes and shattered windows trying to keep looters out of the business because cops can't get in here. And so, I figure before they were cops, they were just Americans. So here we are.
or during the LA riots.
Or during the LA riots, collateral damage, I guess.
Everyone protected their own stuff. That's where you got the term rooftop Korean.
So bottom line, justice for Floyd, and I hope they stop looting at some point.
See, I think that's a completely reasonable stance, and a way to exercise your privilege. Because yeah, these two guys were white, and if you do watch the video, though, there are a few black gentlemen behind them with assault rifles as well, wearing masks. But I think that's the way you handle this. It's the side you take. If you're against authoritarianism, tyranny, you're on the side of the protesters. But I get when the protesting starts turning into rioting. And I understand if there is a separation in that. To say, nah, that's, I'm with you until a point. Now I'm not with you anymore. There are some other notable things about the rioting, though. Some of it may be more justified than what we realize. In fact, something that a journalist friend of mine sent me last night, when this was all breaking out, he sent me a document, and further, let's see, let me bring it up here. Now, it was so hard to find, honestly. I don't know how he got this, but he did send it to me. I tweeted it, so if you want to actually see the original instead of just hear me talk about it, it is on my Twitter page, JC Show VIP, or you can just look up Jay Dillon on Twitter. You should be able to find me. I look like Ben Stiller from Tropic Thunder. I've got a panda hat on my face, so you can kind of find me there. It's one of my most recent tweeted tweets. Anyway, in here, though, it outlines this program that law enforcement in Minneapolis, in that area, and I think across the country, to be honest, but namely in Minneapolis, and this is where this is being cited from. But there's this program that Target and the law enforcement worked on, and it was called Target and Blue, in which Target donated about $500,000 to the local law enforcement to put up surveillance cameras, CCTVs, and things like that in black and brown neighborhoods. So maybe them going after Target wasn't just a kind of a by chance kind of situation. I find that interesting that no one else is talking about that. I know I would in this kind of situation. If there was big corporations putting up cameras in my backyard, yeah, I'd have a problem with it. But you're not going to hear the right talk about it because the right wants to villainize the people. The left isn't going to talk about it because the left doesn't want you to know that they're complacent in a lot of this. So that is something interesting out of this situation that might change your view on them rioting, at least in Target. And I don't know about AutoZone. I really don't know why certain specific. And I don't, the one thing that I think was made, and that we have to believe and think about, is some of the rioting might have there might be a purpose behind it. Some of the people going after Target might be that, program right there is the problem. But they're not the ones who are causing damage at local businesses. They're not the ones who's going after AutoZone, for example. And to make, to make that more prevalent in the situation, we have to remember that the protesters are not the ones solely doing this. Meaning, the protests are for George Floyd. The peaceful protests, but we can't negate the stance of the protest because of the rioting. And understand that it's not a majority of the protesters, the peaceful protesters who are rioting. There is a significant group, don't get me wrong, but they do not make up the majority of the people who are protesting right now. So, you have to put that in order. I think this does kind of put I think Ilhan Omar tweeted, and I think it's probably one of the, best takes, and that is that violence begets violence, and that the language of protest is often counterproductive. And I think that's the perfect way to take. That's the way I feel. You shouldn't be doing this stuff. Again, as negative as I feel about it, if the stuff with Target is true, well, then they have it coming, So, another interesting character who I have not heard talked about at all. I only can verify that her name is Jennifer. Some of you, especially you who spend time on Twitter, know who I'm talking about. The second character of the situation. Kind of the comic relief of this disaster was this woman, this white woman, and as a journalist, quote unquote journalist, Andy No, used as a victim, can be seen in a wheelchair stabbing people. Then she gets punched, and then they spray her down with the fire extinguisher. By the way, all this is happening while she's wearing a Hillary Clinton shirt, which is very interesting. By the way, it seemed to be only stabbing black people. She seemed to let white people run past her. I don't know if that, we see little clips. There's not a 2-hour feed on this woman. So, yeah, regardless of what her motives are, of who she stabbed, she did get punched. She got maced. She got attacked. And depending on what videos you see, which I enthrall you. If you are watching any of the videos, I suggest you watch all of them, because there's going to be people, and I've already seen it, who are taking advantage of this, making her out to be a victim, calling her a elderly disabled woman being attacked by quote unquote these animals. But yeah, in the video she was clearly stabbing people, wearing a Hillary Clinton shirt. She was attacked. You see her later on crying, saying that she got maced and that they were attacking her as she was just trying to stop the looters from going into Target. She is the Target vigilante. Now, what kind of person, by the way, gives that much of a shit about Target? I don't know. We then find out that, oh yeah, she can walk. The whole wheelchair thing, not a thing, because there's a closed-circuit video of her walking and, in fact, trying to break into an ATM machine. And I think the whole thing that really, kind of sends it over the top is this elderly disabled woman is not disabled, at least not as far as physically disabled. She's also not elderly. She's 30 years old. For me, that the whole situation around her, that was a roller coaster ride last night. But one of the very few kind of comical parts of a completely tragic story. But I did want to shed a little light on that, only because there's going to be people who only see certain video clips and don't double check it, and they're going to come out and say, look what these people did to this elderly disabled woman. Not questioning why an elderly disabled woman would stand in front of a Target stabbing people. I shouldn't say stand, sit in front of Target trying to stab people. Like, she's not Batman. And to be clear on this as well, if any of the rioters wanted to hurt her badly, they would have. And I feel like, too, if you watch these videos, they knew who she was, because they kept calling her by her first name. That's just a weird thing, right? Anyway, the rioting is still going on, as we are about 24 hours later from when it started last night. There are more protests happening as we speak. And there is, by the way, way more on the case that have broken since the rioting. Starting off with the 4 police officers have, we have seen we've seen the prosecution against them, I should say. And we also have learned that Derek Chauvin, the man who was kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck, also had 18 complaints against him, and one of which did involve the death of a civilian. And that opens up a Pandora's box of other things to happen. Consider this: the person who had been in charge of prosecuting him was none other than Democrat Amy Klobuchar. Biden's possible new VP, probably not anymore, by the way. That starts coming into play. Why wasn't anyone watching this? This cop had 18 different compliance complaints against him, and no one's doing anything? Now, come on. You get 6 write-ups at work and you're done. This guy gets 18, and one of them being a death? Now he literally, as a cop, he's killed 2 people. Do you think he saved that many people? Doubt it. That comes into play. Again, there's still no arrest, which I don't understand at all. With what we're seeing, I don't know why. But it's a tragic situation, and I think the one thing, that we can kind of take from this, and maybe a positive, or at least a feeling of unity, is there's not a lot of people, in fact, very few, who are arguing that the cop was right. I haven't seen a lot of Blue Lives Matter protesters. I haven't seen a lot of people say, oh, he was in the right, he should keep his job. The only arguments I've seen is on people protesting. And again, I look, we all have social media, and so we all feel like we have to be opinionated about everything. And I feel like if you do have to take that stance, and you do have a problem with it, you're not invalid for thinking that that's not the way to handle it. I mean, I agree. I think you ruin your own cause when you do something like this. I mean, Martin Luther King famously said that protest is the language of the unheard. He later, though, about 50 seconds later, says that language is counterproductive. So, it's not... Sometimes, we've talked about it before with different protests. Sometimes you just got to show that you mean business. Like those gentlemen who were there protecting local businesses and protecting the protesters. Sometimes you have to show some force. For, certain people, it's walking around with, all kitted up like you're an operator. For other people, it's literally attacking at the system itself. That potentially being things like AutoZone and Target. But anyway, yeah, I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. I know there's probably a few things I am missing that I have forgotten going into this. I think I got everything up to date. It's hard to get all that information. One thing I will say too is I'm trying to upload these as fast as I can, and BitChute is incredibly slow. Like, I will sometimes triple my uploads on there, and a day or 2 later, it shows I have 2 or 3 of the same video up. But I'm just trying to get it up as fast as I can. I had the video on George Floyd I did yesterday, still isn't uploaded on BitChute. So, just to explain that a little bit, that's happening a lot. So, trying to get it up as quick as I can, trying to get things done. It is a daily show, but yeah, BitChute is not complying with that. Anyway, you guys have a great evening, and take care.